Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the webinar today. We'll be starting shortly. I'm just going to go ahead and confirm if you're able to see the screen. And let's see. And also if you're able to hear me. I've also clicked on to send you a pin, which allows you to be unmuted and also to be able to communicate or ask any questions through the presentation. And feel free to do so. I'll stop in after a few of the features have been shown, just to check in if you have any questions, just to let you know. Okay, thank you so much. I will go ahead and start sharing my screen shortly. Okay, perfect. Just checking in to see if you're able to hear me and also are you able to see the screen. I have Letty already been joining the conference, so she should be able to talk or ask any questions, I do believe.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, awesome. And for Alicia, I will go ahead and send you the pin once again, and you can enter it so that it will allow you to communicate or to have a audio as well, like audio output in that regard. And just checking here, giving a couple of minutes so that we're able to begin. You should be seeing the sign-in screen right now. Okay, just checking. We'll go ahead and begin in a couple of minutes. Just giving it a couple moments to see uh, if Alicia could join us or if Alicia is able to hear us and also view the screen. Okay. If you also like to communicate through chat, you can let me know and I can also answer any questions that come in through there. Okay, I'll go ahead and start the presentation. Welcome to CareAcademy. It's really exciting to have you join us and have you grow and also keep your caregivers training with us. We can just to let you know, CareAcademy is CareAcademy is a program that actually works upon a lot of the suggestions that administrators let us know about. So if you ever see anything that could benefit from having like an upgrade or an update or a feature that we could be able to introduce in the future, you could always let us know and know that will be taken into account when building any new features for everybody, or whenever we want to implement something else into what's already built. So I will go ahead and start with one of the first things, which is going to be the sign-in screen. And as you know, as you know, any administrator can sign in through this screen, and it will be also the same one for any caregiver. Let me go ahead and, okay, great. Just checking. Okay. So the sign-in screen, to access it, there's if you see the address bar here, that's the actual address, but not everything needs to be typed. So if the caregivers or any administrator just types go.careacademy.com without the need of the HTTPS or www, it will be taking them to this page. Let me go ahead and show you that. Just by clicking on sending go.careacademy.com, it'll take them to this page. So you could easily just share that part of the link, and it does make it a little more simple for any caregivers that are not really used to being entering like full addresses and such. And also in our communications that we send them like the link so they're also able to click it right away. Okay, so they're first to start. Any caregiver that has already set a password, or any administrator as well, should be entering through this sign-in screen, in which they can enter either their email address, and in the case of the caregivers, since they do have the mobile number in file, they're able to enter the mobile number there as opposed to the email. This also helps for caregivers that are not that tech savvy or may not have an email address or just do not check it out often. So they could just get familiar with just using the mobile number. So if they, for example, enter just their mobile number itself without any dashes and the password that they have set up, they're able to sign in with no issues. The next thing that's on this screen will be the forgot your password feature, which is something that you're familiar with like on different websites. I'll go ahead and show you what that looks like. So even if a caregiver maybe never set a password, or they misplaced their welcome email, or maybe they just changed the email and did not receive it. As long as the user is created, they're able to use this feature regardless if they have never signed in before or if they've never set a password. So this is another way that you could refer any caregiver that basically just needs to sign in and never had a password, or if they need a password change. So here it can also allow you to enter the email address for administrators and caregivers. And for caregivers, since they do have both, they can use either their email address or mobile number. And by entering either, they should be receiving a text message and also an email with a link to set a password. They do not have to use both. They can use whichever feels more comfortable for them, or whichever is more useful, or whichever they want to sign in with. So if they want to take the classes through the phone, obviously it'd be easier to reset a password through a text message. Okay, and besides this, let me go ahead and log in as an administrator and show you this as a demo agency. As you can see, this is what your agency will look like once you sign in. There, depending on your status, there'll be like no caregivers or just still caregivers to add, or you'll see the list of caregivers already in place. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and start from the top, which will be how to add a new caregiver. To do so, there's a button here on the right side in which you can click on New Caregiver. And I'll be loading this part here. So once you load this part, this is where you can enter your caregiver's details, and that'll be added to the training at CareAcademy. Okay, and the details needed are only first name, last name, phone number for the caregiver, email address. As you know, the phone number and email address both work for username, also for communication, so that we can help them reset a password or so. It also includes the hire date, so that depending on the state, if the state does use the hire date for due dates, it'll be used for that. And if it's in California, they'll ask for the HCA and registration date and the HCA ID. But in any states that are outside of California, these two rows are not going to be present. So you only have to add these details. Next up below that is one of the important things to set up when you're adding a caregiver, which is the question of if they need initial training or not. Depending on your answer here, that's what the training that will be automatically assigned to the caregiver upon creating them. So if you were to answer that yes to the needs initial training, the caregiver will be assigned what initial training classes are set up in your dashboard. So if this is a brand new caregiver and they just have been hired, you most likely will like to put this. Or if it's a caregiver that's continuing education or that came in with previous training, you can click on no, and it'll allow you to set up like a secondary option, which is only for annual training. As you know, by clicking on no, we'll assign them annual training. So the next question is annual training past due, which will let you know if the caregiver will be aiming to complete the training in the future, or if they come in already past due or needing to take the training right away, or they needed to have completed by a certain time before. So for example, we put the hire date on January, so you'll see here January 2nd, 2019, or January 2nd, 2018. And the due date or the due date for the annual training is already past due. It will be setting this as the due date for the caregiver. But if we are to put, if we put yes, it'll be a past due, and it's gonna be putting 1/2/19 for the caregiver. And if we put that the training is not past due, it'll be using the next year's on the due date for that caregiver. So this allows you to set that option as well. And also this third options that you see here is only for California. And this lets you use the hire date to base your the annual training due date for the caregivers, or you can use just the HCA registration date. And then the last one will be another option, which let me go ahead and see. It allows you to just use this as a placeholder or just as an identifier to know if a caregiver is a home care aide, a home health aide, or a certified nursing assistant, just if you want to have that extra information there. Okay. And after we have entered all the details here, all that we need to do is click on create, and a few things happen in the background when we do this. Since this is a test agency, let me go ahead and just create one for it. Test webinar. We're gonna go ahead and put any number and any email address. Okay, hire date we're gonna put today. I just want to let you know what will happen, and I can also show it on the side. Needs initial training, we're gonna go ahead and put yes, and this is all okay. and we're going to go ahead and create a caregiver. And at this point, what it does is that it's going to add a new entry for a new caregiver here, as you can see below. It will be adding the classes that you have chosen to be assigned. So depending if they need initial training or annual training, that's what will be assigned. So in this case, the caregiver needed initial training. So at this point, also a user was created for the caregiver. All these classes have been assigned to that user, and the caregiver will be receiving a welcome email and a welcome text that say that they received an email from CareAcademy and that we're working with the agency. That's where the name of your agency will show for them to be able to complete classes, and it will also provide them a link so they can click on to set a password. And upon setting a password, they would immediately be seeing how many classes they need to complete. It'll show them progress. And also upon the next click, it'll show them the name of the classes that they need to complete, and they can get started right away. So within a few moments from the point that you create the caregiver, they can actually be accessing and starting their classes. So it is a fairly easy process to follow. So for example, you have a caregiver come in and they take the training. Even if they want to take the training at the office, you could easily create the caregiver, send them the email, and you could even make it easier up under one of the features which allows you to change the password for a caregiver so that they don't have to wait for the welcome email. And I'll be introducing to that shortly. I just want to know if there's any questions so far in how to log in or how to add a caregiver. Okay. I do hope that that's no. I do hope that that's understandable so far. And do let me know if you do have any questions up on we come on under any new features or one of the other things that I'll be explaining shortly. Okay. Now we'll go ahead and continue with the tabs and which to see, I guess, so I can define it better. What current information you're seeing here or which caregivers are currently displaying, and the tabs can be chosen on the top here. As you can see, there's a tab for all caregivers, one for initial training, one for annual due soon, and one for annual due date overdue. So that all caregivers will be showing exactly as it shows, like every single caregiver, regardless if they have completed the training or if they're still in progress. If you go on the next tab, this one that says initial training would only show caregivers that are still in the process of completing their initial training. So this, if you want to see any caregiver that's on that just has been hired and is still in their initial part of the training, this will be the place to do so. The next one up will be for caregivers that are due soon on their annual training. Due soon will entitle caregivers that are 60 days or less before their due date. So if their due date were to be 60 days from now or less than 60 days from now, they'll be appearing on this tab here. And you can know, and at this point is where we can, like both administrators and coaches at CareAcademy, change the messaging in which we let the caregiver know that their due date is coming up soon, that if they need help either logging in for the first time or finishing up their training, depending on their status. And it also allows you to know that the due date is approaching for that caregiver. And last but not least, we'll have the tab for caregivers that are overdue on their annual training. This is, for example, when you enter a caregiver that did not complete their last year of training and may need to catch up. That'll be automatically added here. Or if a caregiver ever gets to that point in which they have not completed the training, they passed the due date soon and they got to overdue, this is where they will be displayed. And the messaging for caregivers that are sent automatically does vary from a caregiver that's due soon and a caregiver that's overdue, and it provides them those details like you're overdue this many days, or you'll do in this many days. So it does let them know that on the automated messages. And this also allows the coaches and also, as you can see, like the administrator to know what the status is for the caregiver without having to go through a whole list or take too long and to know where they stand at. Okay. So right now, since we're already here, I want to show you what all this information means when on the default view or what you can see without clicking on the caregiver. First, you're going to see the name of the caregiver, last name first, and then last name and first name. It'll show the phone number for the caregiver, their initial training progress. As you can see here, this one was completed, or the initial training was actually not required for this caregiver. So it does mark it this way. If a caregiver completed the training at CareAcademy, you'll see that it shows differently with the completion date, and it also shows a ribbon. That ribbon does mean that the classes were completed at CareAcademy, so that lets you know what kind of, if you can find the certificates there too. Next up, you'll see that an amount of months or days, depending on the status. This is actually for the next annual training due date. So you can see easily here by that this caregiver is past due 1 month, past due 1 month, is due in 9 months, and this one is due in 1 year because we just added that test caregiver. Next up, like below, it'll show you the actual date that the caregiver is due. So if you want to provide that specific date, or you just want to follow it up, this will be the date. Next up, you'll see a button, which is actually one of our features, so it allows you to send a text message to that caregiver. So for example, if you click here, you're able to use that mobile number that's attached with the caregiver to send them a text. So for example, you want to let them know, I've just added an additional classes to your training. I see that your training is past due. I see that you have not yet completed the training. That can come from either the administrators, if that's something that you like to do to help your caregivers or to motivate them. But around every 10 days, also coaches try to reach out to caregivers that have not completed their initial training, are going to be due soon, or are overdue, to offer them additional assistance if they need to either walk them through, or if they were for some reason stuck, or maybe they haven't been able to get back in because of a password. Sometimes they don't want to reach out to somebody like somebody with the name, so that they can know that somebody's here to assist them. So this is actually up to you in the way that you want to use it. You can send any type of messages that you want to the caregivers. So this is a great way to get in touch with them without having to go outside the dashboard to do so. And it allows you also to communicate anything that is related to this, of course. Where you see below that, where it says not yet contacted, is actually going to be showing the date when the caregiver was last sent a message through the dashboard. So if an automated message was sent to them letting them know that they're past due, it's going to be showing that here. Let me actually go ahead and activate the automated messaging for this demo dashboard so I can show you what that looks like. But if right here there it says not yet contacted, let me go ahead and try this. Try to send a message, just a test, see if it will go through, because it's just a placeholder phone number. I went ahead and texted that caregiver. Okay, yeah, it shows me an invalid number here because it was not able to show it for the caregiver. But okay, yeah. Let me go ahead and show you that through a different dashboard as well. I'm gonna go ahead and open another demo one. Just a couple seconds. Okay, here's one of our other demo dashboards, which will be shown shortly. This does include a little bit more details into the progress or when a caregiver was, for example, messaged. You can see that this one was messaged 7 months ago, but this is because it's a demo dashboard. But our automated messages actually go up once per week. So you can expect your caregivers that are pending completions of classes to be getting our automated messages letting them know where the current status is every 7 days. So they'll be getting both an email and a text. So whichever they do like to prefer to follow up on that, they can check and they can know their current status. It also provides them a link to sign in and continue their training. And it also provides them details into who they can contact to continue or if they ever need help. Okay, and let's go ahead and see. And to follow that, okay, let me go ahead and show. And okay, this is the last part for this. And now we're gonna go ahead and move on to the curriculum management. This part is important to know, as this is like the back, if you can call them the back end settings, to know which classes will be assigned to your caregiver if you set them to initial training or annual training. And to access this, it can be done through here. On the top left, if you can see curriculum management, we're able to click here. And it will be loading the list of classes that will be assigned to those caregivers. If you had a chance to or not to view this, you may be familiar with it. But the first thing that you'll see is going to be a setting for the initial training. There's also a separate tab for the annual training, so you can make those changes separately. And here we're going to show you the names of the classes and also the topics that those classes include that will be assigned to your caregivers. So by having this list here, you can already tell that if you add a caregiver to take initial training, these are the classes that will be made available for him right away. And to be able to modify or to make changes, our dashboard also provides you extra tips or extra requirement information. So if your the state that your agency works for, Those fall under one that does have state requirements. If you click on requirements next to initial training classes to the title here, you're going to be able to see the topics or time requirements that the state may have. So I have the setting for this in California. So their topic requirements are emergency procedures, infection control, role of a caregiver, and safety precautions, and also a time requirement of 5 hours. So at this point, it does let me know if there's anything, any of these topics are missing or the time requirements are not reached yet. It will let me know through this. You can see here, it says missing class topic, role of a caregiver. So it does let you know, like, okay, in order to be compliant with state requirements, this is what I need. So you're able to modify classes by clicking here on add classes or here below, and it's going to be showing you this 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 list here, which is like a class catalog. It's going to show all of our available classes. So if we're able to release a brand new class, it is going to be immediately showing here. And it also is going to be showing you the topics that that class includes. So it lets you know if you're looking for a topics within a class rather than a full name of a class, you're also able to find that through here. It does have a search bar which you can put a name for the class. If you're looking to find clients' rights, you can just type it here. It also provides a different way of selecting a class or selecting a topic. So if you click on this drop-down bar here, it allows you to select a topic. So if you're looking for a topic for roles of a caregiver, let's see, if we're trying to fill out that requirement that we have not fulfilled, you could just look for a role of a caregiver here, and it does show you which class will be covering that. As you can see, is here on the subtopic. And once we click on add, it's going to be taking off that missing requirement. So this is great to have as a backup or also as a guide into building up your class list. And also, so you feel safe into the initial class list. Our default classes are actually based on state requirements, so you know that ahead of time that if you leave the classes that we sent at the beginning, every caregiver would be compliant if they complete the classes that are there. The same way that you see that classes can be added, they could also be removed by clicking on the same button. All it'll say remove that rather than add, and it's going to be showing on gray rather than blue. So once I do that, it'll be removed from here. Another way that you can do that is by clicking on the class itself, dropping down the information, and you can also find the class description here as well. This will show you the assigned date. So if you ever want to know when this class was added, or if this was added at a later point in time, you can use this assigned date to do so. Or you can also remove the class here. The topics here are also included, so if you want to see which topics are in the classes that are already available for your caregivers, you can do so by looking here. And if there's plenty of topics to look at, it'll show in a drop-down, as you can see here, or as you can see here. As a system with personal care through ADLS does touch on a lot of important topics, which are basically not enough to have like a full class for them, but it's really well to teach together. So this is all the topics that are included on this class. And in order to make the changes or to save those changes, all you need to do is click on publish. So if you make changes of 4 classes and you click on publish, every caregiver that has not started their training or that has not started their initial training will have their training updated. So for example, you added 10 caregivers and none of them have begun their training, and you decide to make changes on their classes. Every single one of those caregivers will be assigned their new curriculum or the changes that you have done here. And also, any new caregiver that you add after the point of publishing a new curriculum or publishing changes, the new caregivers would also be having this training. Okay. And we should be done with the initial training part here, and now we're gonna go ahead and move on to the annual training, which is fairly similar in a lot of senses, and does allow you to do continuing options, which I'll show shortly. You can check out the requirements just as the initial training by clicking on requirements. It'll show you the topics that are required and the hours if that's something that the state does have. You can add the classes or remove them just as we did before, but then we have an extra option, which is add a year. And what this does is that this will be the first thing you see there will be the first year. So if a caregiver completes their initial training, they will move on to take the first year classes. So the first year classes can be different from the second year. So if you want your caregiver, and for example, this is especially helpful where there's no requirements, so you can feel free to make the curriculum as you wish. So you can add separate different classes on year 1, then different classes on year 2, so that the caregivers continue with different topics, or maybe with something that they did not need to learn right away, but it would be better to learn at a later point in time. And you could even add like a third year or so, and you can continue to customize your training that way. And the same way, they can be published to make the changes as well. So before a caregiver can take those year 3 classes, for example, they have to take the year 2 classes, the year 1 classes, and if you choose so, they have to take the initial training classes as well. Okay, that will be the only difference between the initial training tab and annual training tab, as you know. And just to remind you, if you choose that the caregivers do not take initial training, the first thing that they will be assigned will be this initial training classes. Okay. And the last thing that should be on this curriculum management screen is going to be the advanced options. So depending on the state that you are, it will allow you a couple different options to both the due date and the training schedule for the caregivers. And first, to explain the due date, this one, for example, in California, lets you choose a higher registration date or a single due date every year for everyone. So a higher date will be based on having the annual due date to be due 1 year from the hire date. So if a caregiver was hired today, 2/6/2019, their due date will be exactly 1 year from now on 2/6/2020. But if there's no state requirements that are to be based on that, you can feel free also to select single due date every year for everyone. This allows you to have like a more focused training if you want to spend just like a specific set of time to follow your caregivers to do so, or if you want all your caregivers to finish, for example, by December 31st. And by clicking on single due date every year for everyone, you can select which state that will be due. A lot of our agencies that choose to do this, they have in common that they like to do like end year or mid year as the due date, and they can set it that way. And obviously, you can click on save to make the changes. And moving on from that, you'll have an option for your training schedule. And what this does is this is where you choose when a caregiver will be getting access to their training. So the default one, it will be to enroll the caregiver 60 days before. So caregivers that are taking initial training are not affected by this setting because initial training gets assigned right away. But caregivers that are taking annual training do get modified if you are to change this. So if you select the default option, which is enroll 60 days before, what this does is that the system automatically assigns the annual training classes once the caregiver reaches that point of being 60 days prior to their due date. This is helpful, for example, if you would like to, you're actually one of the agencies that pays for the caregivers training, and you would like to have it at a specific time, so you can expect when the caregivers will be completed within like a shorter time frame. Or if you, for example, like to your caregivers to just complete the closer they are, or like the further away they are from their previous completion, the better it is for the learning, or also to refresh in the classes as well. And the other part is for any agencies that may have any worries, for example, for caregivers maybe moving on to a different agency. So for retention wise, you could also use this so that the caregivers take the classes closer to their actual due date. And then we also have the option to enroll right away. What enroll right away means is like as soon as the caregiver gets added to the annual training, they'll have access to it, and they have the option of completing like maybe one class, or throughout the year they're able to complete the classes instead of only 60 days before. And we do keep this 60 days before so that the caregivers can focus to complete classes like around 1 year since their last completion, and it does keep like a more constant pace, or like a more defined pace on when they should be completing classes. So this option is actually completely changeable for you, so you can choose when you would like your annual training to be assigned to the caregivers. Okay. And once you are able to make any changes, you can click on save, and it'll be done for your caregivers in your list. Okay. And I know this may be a lot of information for the curriculum. So if you ever decide to change it at a later point, you can always reach us, and we can assist you to like just walk you through making the changes for the first time. Uh, or if you can also let us know if you have any questions on what recommended classes could be at some point as well. And that should be all when it comes to the curriculum management. I just wanted to ask if there was any questions so far, or you could also let me know at a later point in time if you have any questions once you get to try it out. Would it be okay to move on right now, or any questions that I could help you with? We'll go ahead and move forward. And we're going to go ahead and continue with the presentation. And we're going to go ahead and move to the details that are shown per caregiver. Okay, and to go back to the dashboard, you can click on dashboard, which is the button on the left here next to curriculum, and it'll take you back to the main dashboard. Now we're gonna go ahead and move to see the details that are shown for each of the caregivers once you click on them. So by clicking on them, you're gonna see that more information is dropped down for that specific caregiver. You can see more details and their progress. You can also see their email address, hire date, and are also able to modify some of this information. But first, we're gonna go ahead and start with their how the training displays or the classes that they're currently completing. So any past training will be it's not gonna be dropped down, but it'll be put this way. But you all can also drop it down to see what the caregivers have completed in the past. But upon seeing a new caregiver, it'll be displayed this way. So the 60 days before option will be displayed this way in your dashboard so that you know that when the caregiver will have access to the classes. So as you can see here, this caregiver is due in 9 months. So it is scheduled to be enrolled on those classes on September 9, 2019. So this caregiver currently does not have any annual classes to complete, which is a good time to use one of our other features, which is to add a class, which is also accessible through here, and I'll be going to be showing that shortly. And you could also see progress for classes that have already been taken this way. Let me go ahead and show you something through our demo dashboard as well, because I do have different displays, ways that the information displays there. Okay, so here we have a caregiver that has taken multiple trainings over time, including additional courses. And I want to show you how this will display here. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, so a caregiver that has completed a class will be displayed with this green check mark. If they have started a class, there's actually going to be a purple clock showing here, and it will say started. We have actually updated our to a feature that will now show when what score a caregiver has gotten. So upon completions that were done, I do believe from last week and until now, it will also be showing that when the caregiver completed a class. Here, you see completed, it'll show you the date, but would also show you the score. It'll show the score 80%, score 95%, or score 100%. So it does that show that additional detail there. Okay, and let me see here. Okay, so for classes that are done at CareAcademy, you're also going to see this thing that says certificate. This certificate will be exactly for the class that you're looking at. So if you want to see or print or save for any reason the certificate for assisting with oral hygiene in this case, you can click on certificate here, and it's going to load that specific one, showing the name of the caregiver, the class that they completed, the date, the duration of that class, and the signature of our co-founders. And that can be actually printed or saved by clicking on the button above, which will take you to the options that you can choose your printer, or just the destination can be saved as a PDF, which is equivalent to downloading that. Okay, and going back to that, you could also see the completion data shown here. And there's also another feature that you can encounter here, where you see actions. For example, if you have a caregiver that needs to complete their annual training, these are their 3 classes for that caregiver. But that caregiver lets you know that, like, just a few months ago or like a month ago, they completed an emergency procedures class, which you have decided to count towards that training. So you can click on actions, and it's going to show you an option which is to waive a class. What waiving means is that you're going to be entering information that does show the completion of that class that was done outside CareAcademy, and it will be unenrolling that class for the caregiver. So upon clicking on waive, you're going to see these 2 options. So you can select agency, class, or other, where you can enter the name of the class that the caregiver took, a brief description of the topic, the duration. If it changes from 60 minutes, you can put 30 or 90, or depending on the duration of that class. The training organization, which is usually included within the certificate that a caregiver will show you. A class training if possible, and a class location, which could be same as the organization, of course. And then the completion date of that. So let's go ahead and test that right now. So test, so you can see what the results are. Test description. Okay, and we're gonna just put the same information here. We're gonna go ahead and put also today's date, so you can see that this is gonna be displayed later. I'm sorry. So once we click on here, you can click on state, and you'll see how this class is now completed on our system. So this will send a signal for our system to remove that class that we have just waived, so that the caregiver does not complete it again, and they can continue with the classes that they do need to take for that goal. So it allows you to hybridly manage the training for that caregiver, and it shows you the date as well. There's actually another option in which you can do by waiving a class. So if you click on waive class and select the CareAcademy class option, this is for different purposes. So if a caregiver completes a class in office or in a group setting and you have chosen to do that for the caregivers, you're able to reflect that completion this way. And all you need to basically put is just the training. If you want to put the name of the trainer that helped them through that class or through that group setting, you can put the location as well, and you can put the completion date. So test, let's go ahead and do that as well. And we're gonna go ahead and put yesterday's date, so like we can see that this differently from the other. And this will also mark this class as completed, with the difference that it will keep the backend information that is at CareAcademy. So because this was a completion of content of CareAcademy, you will also have access to the certificate here, without having the caregiver completed on their specific user. So if you ever choose, or something providing classes as a group setting is something that does work for you, you also have this option to be able to reflect that training for the caregivers. So if a caregiver completed a class outside CareAcademy and they completed another class in the office, they still have the option here to take the last remaining class online. So it does allow you to be a lot of flexibility for how the caregivers can take the training, and to approach the training the way that works best for them, while not disregarding any other training that the caregiver may has taken at a previous time. So we do have that is one of the features that helps you follow up with the caregiver's training. And just to let you know once how the progression works as well, is that if a caregiver completes this annual training, that'll be marked here as completed, and then the next one will be assigned at the time that you have chosen on the settings, either 60 days before or once the caregiver has just completed the previous training. Okay. Any questions so far with that feature for waiving a class? Okay, seems we're okay, but feel free to let me know at any point if you do, or if there's anything that you have doubt on as we explain it as well, and I'll be happy to help with that. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and continue with all the other options that are available and what we can see here. The first of which we're gonna be how to edit a caregiver, which can be done by clicking on the button that you see on the bottom left of the caregiver details once you have clicked on the drop down. And this is where you can edit the caregiver. You see this is a very familiar screen, which is similar to when you add a caregiver. You can see the same details, with the difference that this is for you to be able to make any changes. So for example, there's any misspelling on the first name or last name, the caregiver gets married and gets a change of last name, or there's a change of phone number, or an incorrect email or a change, of course, they can be modified through here. And upon saving this, it'll be showing everywhere that you would expect it to. So the certificates would also be changed, and you'll be displaying the new name. The caregiver can actually log in with the new phone number. The text messages that are sent to the caregiver will be arriving there, and everything that you would expect it to does make the change. You can also be able to change the hire date, or decide if maybe the caregiver does not need initial training after all, or if they do need that initial training after all. So you're able to modify things even after you have already set the caregiver. And of course, you only have to click on save to make those changes, and that will be all for when it comes to editing a caregiver. Okay, and next to the edit caregiver button, we have another button that does have some interesting features, which if you click on the three dot button, I'm sorry about that, which you click on the three dot button, you're gonna go ahead and see these 5 options here. The first of which is for historical completions, and this allows you to be able to enter a class that was completed. Let me see, that was completed outside CareAcademy, but that was not part of the mandatory training. So if you just want to document maybe a caregiver went and completed a few classes that were not part of their compliance training, we're able to enter that here, and we can save those classes, those details for you. And you're also able to basically do the same thing as the waiving, but without removing any other class. But this would allow you to show any historical training that the caregiver has taken, being separate from the ones that they still need to take. Okay. You saw that those same details that were asked for the waiving a class are exactly the same ones for the historical completion. So we're gonna go ahead and move to the next option, which is to transfer to agency. So if if at any point you choose to have two dashboards for your training. So for example, if you have one example of that will be if you have CNAs and then personal care, or if you have just companion care and then some personal care caregivers, and you choose them to have different classes. This is where having two different dashboards comes into place. So if you ever decide to transfer a caregiver from one of those dashboards to the different one, so maybe they have changed positions, this is where you would use the transfer to agency feature. Then the next one up, the next one down, I'm sorry, would be to change the password. And this is where I had mentioned earlier that if you have a caregiver come into the office and you want to get them, the faster you can get them ready to take the training, the better. You can actually change the password for that caregiver by clicking here and just typing the password that you would like for that caregiver. So if you have like, this is the best for caregivers that are not tech savvy and they may have difficulties finding that welcome email, you can easily just set a password for them. You can, something as easy as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The only requirement is that it's 6 characters, or you can put something like password 1, 2, 3, and you can click on change password, and the caregiver at that point will be able to access with that password that you set up. And another thing that we do as a support here is that when a caregiver has let us know that they have attempted to do it, they're not really that tech savvy to be able to change a password, or they just want to have like an easier time to get started, we actually are able to change the password, and we do send them a text message that provides them the link so where they can log in. It provides them the username and their password, and that is also a great tool for them to refer to whenever they can continue their training. So that's another example of how to use some of our features in conjunction. So if you're able to change the password, you can let the caregiver know that the changes have been done, or this is your new password so you can access. So depending on what will be most useful to you, it is available to be done that way. Okay, and the next two options are going to be to deactivate or delete a caregiver. And there's a slight difference between the two. The most simple to explain will be to delete a caregiver, which will be to removing the caregiver completely from your dashboard, so that they're not able to access. But that's when you want to disassociate maybe from a caregiver. And then there's other option to deactivate. What deactivating does is that it does not allow the caregiver to sign in, but it moves them to a separate list, which is accessible by the administrators. And you can find that list in the top left next to dashboard and curriculum management, which is titled deactivated caregivers. If you see this here, we're able to click, let me go ahead and test that for you so you can see it. We're gonna go ahead and deactivate test 5. So if I wanna deactivate this caregiver, it will ask you to confirm it, of course. And then it will move them to the list mentioned before, which is deactivated caregivers. And once we are there, it will show you just the basic details of that caregiver. Oh, let me see if I did deactivate it successfully. Okay, it seems that I did not complete it correctly. Sorry about that. Deactivate this caregiver. Deactivate. Okay, I'm just checking. I do believe like maybe because it's a test one, it's not finding that caregiver to deactivate. Sorry about that. Let me go ahead and do it on the other test one that does actually have caregivers to move. Just a few moments. I'll get that for you. Here it is. Okay. We're gonna go ahead and find my test user here, so I don't bother anybody else's progress. So we want to deactivate this caregiver. So once we do that, it'll show you, just make us ask for the confirmation if we want to deactivate the caregiver, and then it's gonna be moving them to the list above. Yeah, it did take my input here. It was because of that other caregiver is a non-existing one. But if we go to deactivated caregivers now, it's going to show you the list of the caregivers that have been deactivated over time, and you have the option to either delete them completely from the dashboard or to reactivate so that they continue from where they left off. And once you click on deactivate, they'll be getting access once again to the training, so that you can use this list also to keep just a record of caregivers that have taken training at some point, which is one of what some of our agencies choose to do, just so that they know, oh, okay, we added this caregiver at some point, and they may have taken the training, so they can already expect that they may have done some progress as well. or you can basically just use it for caregivers that do have the chance of returning at some point. It is up to you to use it that way. Another example could be for caregivers that take a year off for school for sometimes, or that may be going to their home country for like a few months and that will be coming back at some point. You could use this feature as well to keep them on that list. Okay, and any questions so far? Let me go ahead and see. Any questions so far into what we have shown at this point? Okay, it sounds like that everything should be fine. Thank you so much. And we're going to go ahead and continue with the next part. And just wanted to check in, I guess like a halfway check in to see if you haven't understood what we have gone through, if you have been able to follow with the presentation with the screen so that you know where to find some of the features. And just in case if you had missed anything, you can always reach out to us once you get the chance to use some of the features or some of that. Let me go ahead and see. Okay, for Alicia, let me see if I can. Okay, we have Alicia. I do believe I can hear you now, Alicia. If you want to let me know if you have any questions.
I do have a question. How many active caregivers can we have at one time? Because we're going to onboard our entire staff, and how many of those will they all remain active the whole time?
Yes, if depending on the plan that you discussed with the sales team,
Oh,
we also have the option of like doing a bulk upload. So if you, for example, send us the information for the caregiver,
yes.
so what you saw in the new caregiver details, that's basically all we would need to upload those caregivers, and we can upload them
Okay.
all at once in a bulk if you wish to, so that you don't have to enter them one by one, and they can be active as well.
Perfect. Perfect. So they'll all be active, but the trouble is only a group of them are going to be due. I'm just not everyone has a different due date at this point, so I don't want a bunch of caregivers getting notified that they've on this new website and that they have something due when it's not. Do you understand when it's not due yet? How do I establish that? Is that what I established in the Excel spreadsheet before I upload
Yes.
it?
Let me see. Once we have the caregivers, it does ask us for the hire date. So if depending on what the state requirements are, it would allow us to enter a date once we add them. So for example, if a caregiver is not due right away, all they will be getting is just a welcome email to set a password, so that they don't. And when they log in, they will not have any classes to take, so that they're not gonna get confused. But if a caregiver that does need to complete classes, they'll see classes available, and they're gonna be getting a separate message that lets them know that they have classes pending. So the communication will be different between both.
Okay. So is it best for me to design the courses like you showed the first year course, second year course? Is it best for me to design those first and then upload everybody so that those people who are due for their third or fourth, I mean, how are you going to know that?
Okay, no, and it will not get as complex up to that point, because for them, once you add them, it'll still be like the first year that they're taking annual training. So whatever's on the first year, that's what they'll be assigned, regardless if they take in. It's like their third year that they took annual training somewhere else, but they will be getting started with the first year. So if you choose to add them, they can start with the first year, and then at a later point in time, maybe a few months from now, then you can start deciding what the second year would be. And if that's also helpful, because at that point there will be more classes released, and you'll have more options as well to what they can take.
Okay, because when we're onboarding people, we have caregivers that have been in their first year, in their second year, in their third. So we're starting from scratch here. So anybody that's in their third year would really be doing the first annual training after they've completed the initial. I think the words are what's confusing me.
Oh, okay. So basically, if the first year will be basically the first year at CareAcademy, so the first set of classes that they would take. So if they have if they're starting from annual training, even though if like they're taking like their fourth year, they're gonna be assigned the first set of classes, and then the second set of classes, and then the third. I guess the only
Got it.
requirement or the question would be if maybe those caregivers may need to take different classes than
Yes,
the others.
they do. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess in that point, what I would recommend as well would be to have the maybe additional classes added to those caregivers or specific classes. So, for example, it's just a group of like the minority of caregivers that need to take different classes. You can set them a due date for up at a later point in time, and then you could add those specific classes for them to take as well. And
Okay.
if I'm not mistaken, if they're already on like on their second or third year, there's a big chance that they're not due for a few months. So you could also
Right.
use those months in between to have them
Uh-huh.
catch up with different classes and also yeah be I guess refresh on the other trainings if you will.
Okay. Okay. That was my big question. The other thing is that in preparing for the onboarding process, I was sent 2 documents, and one of them I can't I can't open properly. So I was wondering, on your website, is there a place for me to go where I can retrieve this Excel document so that I can get all my information onto it, or is that a separate call altogether?
Of course. So one of you mentioned one of the links was not working to obtain the file.
Oh, good. Yeah, yeah. Basically, when I upload it, it doesn't. It's all broken up onto different sheets, and it's confusing to read. It's the second document, I think. I printed the report from ClearCare. That was pretty straightforward. Then there's an Excel spreadsheet that's separate that has other information that I'm
Oh, it
not
has a
able
separate
to
tab.
download.
Oh, okay. If I'm not mistaken, that may be the document that has them on separate tabs. So if
Yes,
you like, after this call, I will send you just like the basically the worksheet that only has like the headers and it has the room
yes,
to set up the information. So yep, yeah, I'll
perfect.
be able to send you that shortly after this call. That way you could just edit it there and you can forward that to hello at Care Academy. So whichever one of our support team would be available, they'll be able to take a look at it right away and then process it as we could. So yep,
Okay,
I'll be
and
sending
then
you that.
depending on our plan, that'll tell me how many users I can keep active, and the rest will be there. I just need to activate them and deactivate them as their training comes due. Is that how that works?
I guess it would depend. It is a little bit harder to manage that way because the you would have to basically be checking all the time, like when their training is due. You could
Yes.
actually have them on the dashboard, and that will help you know when their training is approaching. And another benefit of having them on the main active dashboard is that they can take additional classes while that's coming. So
Uh-huh.
what a lot of our administrators do at that point is like they do acknowledge that some caregivers may take the training right away, and there's some that are going to be due maybe in like a few months, maybe from 3 or 7 or 5 months, so that's like
Uh-huh.
a good chance to be able to assign them specific classes for them. So for example,
Okay.
I'll go ahead and introduce like one of the other features that I was actually gonna go into next, which is to be able to add a class. So when a
Okay.
caregiver is on the say this caregiver that is due in 9 months, a lot of them actually even show interest on completing some of the other classes, or they reach out to us to ask like when they can take their next training. So
Mhm.
even when you see like that initiative from the caregivers, it is really a great time to be able to add a class for them. And to add a class for a single caregiver, all you have to do is click on the name of them, and you're gonna be
Mhm.
able to see this extra button, which is add classes. And once you do
Okay.
so, it'll show a due date if you want to put a due date for them. So for example, if a caregiver has 9 months to complete the other training and you want them to complete something in between, you can put a due date, for example, like 2 months before they have to take their annual training, or 2 months before their due date is for the annual training. Or you can even leave it
Mhm.
in blank if you just want them to have an optional class. So you can
Okay.
select the classes by clicking on this button. And what this is great for is that if the caregiver is going to be taking this as an annual class at a later point, it's not going to be showing it here, so that you know which classes will be best to assign to them. So, for example, yeah, this caregiver is doing 9 months, so I'd like them to complete, for example, Introduction to Dementia Care, and another class that may be even able to benefit them as an individual or the type of a patient that they're working with. They may maybe
Mhm.
not have taken a class directly about that, so you can do overview of heart disease care as well, and you can select those
Mhm.
classes. After those have been selected, you can click on save, and they'll be assigned to that caregiver. So even if that caregiver does not have any annual training due at that point, they still would have access to that additional or optional training in the meantime. And then you
Huh.
wouldn't really have to worry about, oh, I have to activate this caregiver so they can take the training, or be
Yeah.
like actively checking on that list, which is something like the dashboard does assist by keeping these due dates and knowing, okay, yeah, by a simple glance, oh yeah, we have some 2 caregivers that are going to be doing 60 days, or 2 caregivers that are actually overdue. So it does help to that point. And this additional training is actually also a good option to kind of custom tailor training that the caregivers may find beneficial, but that may
Huh.
not benefit all the caregivers, but may be more beneficial for like one that may be working with a new client, or something that they may not be that familiar with. It's a great point to be able to provide that sort of training as well.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
And
Um.
right now, since we have shown that feature, there's also a way to complement it, which is to add a class to multiple caregivers as an additional training, which you can do with these boxes here. And if you click
Oh.
on the boxes, you're able to select one or multiple if you just want to add it for 3 of them, or if you have a group. Okay, these 4 caregivers are doing 9 months, so I want to add them additional training. You have the option to do multiple caregivers at once here. So you can send a text message to them, to all those 3 caregivers. You can add a class to all 3 of them. You can deactivate all 3 or delete all 3. So another one of the examples of using our features in conjunction will be, okay, these 3 caregivers are due in 9 months. So we're gonna go ahead and add them additional training. And the classes you select will be added to the group. It could be even be the whole agency if you like, or if you
Uh-huh.
just want everybody to have 5 optional classes that they can complete in their downtime from their training, like in the few months in between, select the classes and you can add them. And you can still keep the same caregiver selected and then send them a message. So you can give a little bit of context on, we have added these classes to prepare you for your new client. We have added optional classes that will be available for you to take whenever you get a chance to, or if you have interest in taking the classes. So this could be used up on what may fit best for your agency, or even what may be fitting best for that specific caregiver and their extra motivation to take some classes.
Oh, good.
So,
Where do the response to those messages? Where do those end up on the website?
oh yeah,
Can
that's a great
caregivers
site. You
respond to that?
Yes, yes, you are completely right, and that's a great question. It's a great segue to going into one of our other features, which is
Oh,
that we
good.
have a
Okay.
message log for that.
Oh.
So besides being able to send a message, you can also review what's been sent, and you're actually going to be able to see what automated reminder messages have been sent, when a welcome email has been sent, the
Oh,
messages that
nice.
you sent through the dashboard, the replies that the caregivers had, and even the messages, the motivation messages that the coaches sent, or the interactions that the coaches have through text messages through here. So every single one of the things I mentioned should be here. So we're gonna go ahead and start with showing. Yeah, this is one of the welcome emails. Let's go
Oh,
ahead and
wow.
see. This is one of the welcome text messages, and it's showing this because they're invalid phone numbers. They're just placeholders. So, for
Uh-huh.
example, if a caregiver may have a wrong phone number, this will also help you to know that, and that the caregiver has
Okay.
not received a message. So you can connect when there's like something that may not fit right. And this is one of our reminders. This is a reminder email. It says, hi, Tess, you have 3 classes that are now 40 days past due. If they have never signed in, we do have a way that to tell, and that, for example, if they click here and they have never signed in, it will take them
Mhm.
to the page so they can set a new password. So it does
Okay.
identify when a caregiver is like brand new, or when a caregiver has already been there. So, and if they have already done it, it'll just take them to the sign in page. But if they have not done so, they'll take them to the password set, to the set a password page. So that's a really great thing to have for them. And
Okay.
it shows them the user to know that. They knows them that they can change a password if they need to. And this is how let me see, a text message reminder will look like. It's obviously shorter so that that doesn't bother the caregivers on text
Yeah.
messages, but it does provide them the key details, like the name of the agency that is past due, the dates, the amount of days that is past due, and just a link to that they can click on, and the username. Because just by having the username, they know that they can use that to change a password. Or we also provide this because sometimes caregivers may have two emails and may forget which one's the one they're using. So we do like to keep that extra or that user here, even though some of them may be familiar. If you see a reply from a caregiver, they will also be shown here. So if, for example, want to find, okay, I send a message to test 3. and then I want to see if she replied. You can search for test 3, then find the message that you sent. Say I sent the message on 11/6 or on 11/7, and then the caregiver replied. It'll be showing here.
Okay.
So yep, this message log is a great way to kind of find the history of
Yeah.
how many contacts a caregiver has had, because sometimes we all may encounter maybe a caregiver has not received them because they had the wrong information, or maybe the caregiver has never opened their email, but the messages have been sent up to that point. But you, just basically to verify that uh, if if the caregiver has received them at that point, or if you want to refer them to a message that was sent at an earlier time, so they can know where to find it. So it's a great way to use for that.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Welcome. Okay, and let's see. We have already seen how to group add or delete a caregiver, or how to add classes to multiple one of them. And just to let you know that the box at the top, where there's
Uh-huh.
no caregiver names, will allow you to select and deselect all the caregivers. So if you want to do message to every caregiver just to initially let them know, yeah, we have created your user, or if you want to do any custom message that will be coming from you, or it may be even that the caregivers will be expected, because sometimes like the administrators may say, I will let you know once everything has been added besides the automated message sent. This is another way that you can use that. And now we're gonna go ahead and move on to one of the most exciting parts, which is our reports. And this helps like tremendously to be able to summarize the training that a caregiver has taken, or to be able to save all their certificates in one place. And I'm gonna go ahead and show you that there's 2 ways to do this feature. One is for an individual caregiver, and one is for the whole agency. So print reports for individual caregivers can be located by clicking on the caregiver and then clicking on this button that says print report. And the same feature is available for all the caregivers next to the new caregiver button. I'm gonna go ahead and show you what that looks like for, let me see, for a caregiver that has completed a few classes, but that has completed classes at CareAcademy, so that you're able to see those certificates. Okay, I'm gonna show you from the other demo dashboard, because we have a caregivers that have completed multiple classes here, and that may be help that may help to show what a really populated report can look like. Okay, let's go ahead and use mine here. So print reports for an individual caregivers. Once we click on it, it will allow you to choose between 2 options. One is going to be the completion certificates, which is basically just a summary or a group together list of all the certificates earned. So if you click on completion certificates, it's going to provide you options to how do you want to create that report. You can use this account creation to take into consideration every single training that the caregiver has taken, regardless on where they completed it. If it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and then the last one was completed just yesterday, it will be included everything if you click here. Or if you want a custom date range, this is helpful for if you want to just gather the certificates earned within the last 6 months. You could even just type 6 months ago or 1 month ago, and it will even let you set that date for you. It'll set it automatically. Or if you just want to know like what has been earned within the last week, this is a great way to custom use this report. They're gonna go ahead and demo it with the Sense account creation so we can see everything. And once we click on print report, it's gonna generate that file for you, that report for you. So it does seem that that is going to be showing all the certificates earned.
Oh, wow.
So every single certificate for this caregiver can be accessed here easily. So if a caregiver ever shows up and says, "Oh, is there any way that you can send me my certificates?" While they do have access to every single one of them by logging in, this is like an easier way, like even easier way, because you can get them together in a group, or just can print it or save it as a document and send it to them on an email, or even if you just want to have it saved on the computer just to as a checkpoint, maybe on the progress up to that point, or maybe to the beginning of the year, you can save like documents like that. It does provide that the flexibility of using this as you would like it to, or for different functions, of course. And then we do have that same option for the whole agency. So if you have want to, for example, see every single certificate earned for the caregivers within a certain time frame, let me go ahead and reload this. Okay, it's because I have this open. Sorry about that. Okay, so if you want to see all the certificates earned for the whole agency, you would do this through the top part. Let me go ahead and show you that what that will look like. Just waiting for this to load. Okay, completion certificate, and this will be for the whole agency. If you can also choose the last printed option, there's an extra option here that is actually tied to the user. So if you on your user, the last time that you last printed it was on October 18, 2018, it will keep a record of that. So for example, if you don't want to count everything that was shown on the last report, you can just print one since that point forward. So you can have separate reports with separate data. You could also use that since account creation to take everything into consideration, or a custom date range. So if you want to just print the certificates earned by every single caregiver within the last week or within the last month, this is a way that you can set that to work. Or basically, if you just want to save every single certificate that a caregiver has earned in just one file and just refer to it at a later point, or know that you can find this in a sole document, this is what you can do as well. And now I'm going to go ahead and show you the other report. The other report is really, really helpful for when it comes to state audits, because they do ask for a specific report that's going to be including all the details for the classes that the caregivers took, how many classes they completed, a description of that class, all in the same report. It's going to be able to be found in compliance report. You'll have an option for the date range just as the previous report. And we're going to go ahead and show it since the account creation, so you can see all the different ways that it will be displaying current progress for caregivers. And once we click on print report, it will be generating this, which is the training blocks for the caregivers. So if a caregiver has only completed one class, it's not going to be providing you like a full page of just like empty space, but it does create it up to the caregiver's progress. And okay, you can see these classes were completed at CareAcademy. Is going to include the caregiver's last name and first name, the name of your agency, the position teller that you have selected on the placeholder part. If they're in California, it's going to show these two details, which are part of what's required for agencies to show to their auditors, the hire date, and even the number of hours and the training period. So if and it's also going to be showing the training, the time frame that you have selected. So if you just choose to make this report for the last 2 months, it will show you this here, so you don't confuse it with like a full-time report, and it will add up the hours that the caregiver has completed. So besides that, it's going to show the date that the training was completed, the training title, a brief description to know what's in that course, the training organization name, and if there's an instructor, and the location of training, as well as showing if this was part of entry-level training, which is also known as initial, or if it was part of annual training, so you can differentiate that.
Okay. Wow.
And let's see other details that will come into place of something that we did earlier. Let me go ahead and see. Actually, let me show you from the dashboard that we have been demoing on. Yes, I'll show it from here. Remember that earlier we waived a couple of classes. We marked one as completed, as done outside of CareAcademy, and one as done offline. Those classes, you could also expect them to be shown here. As let's go ahead and check. I think it was test 3. Okay, it was test 4 actually. So for test 4, we waived the emergency procedures class with this one that says test description, due date, test agency. So all the details that you enter would also be populated into this report, so that you can have one full report for all the classes and know that everything that the caregiver has taken to be able to reach that compliance is included here, and that you're not going to have to add an additional paper that says that they completed the class here, and kind of like being a little bit confused onto that regard. So, but you have this here, and even the class that we marked that it was completed offline will also have its place in the compliance report here, and with the separate details if they had a specific instructor and a specific location, like maybe you could put the office at your agency, and then the instructor if there was somebody that overviewed their progress, that would also be included here. So, and this once you know that the caregivers have all their details onto their current training here, you could even print and save these reports, and by just printing it, this will be that document that's ready for auditors to see and for them to review and know that you don't really have to put together a document for each one of the caregiver, which is used to be like a really, really time-consuming task for like administrators and everyone alike. So yep, I do believe like this should be all like the conclusion of our presentation. This is one of our most proudest features, and also to remind you, for any of the features that you've seen, you could always give us a call to know how you can best use it for your agency, or if you ever have suggestions on something that we could add to those features, or even a new feature that you would like to see in the future. you could always let us know, and we always take into consideration to when we have time to work on that, or if we're building a feature that's related to it, so that we can include what you suggested as well. And any questions right now before we conclude the call?
No, I think you answered all the questions that I had.
No,
Okay,
thank
that's
you.
great. Awesome. That's great to hear. And you could always reach us out at our customer service line, or you can reach us out through chat. And same way, if you ever have any caregivers that's having any difficulty, you don't really have to take the time from your busy time to help them out, or to kind of figure that out. You could always refer them to us so that we can assist them to either log in, know their current progress, walk them through if they feel like they're not that tech savvy. As we do like to know that we can empower some caregivers that think like some things are too hard because they've never done them, and then they end up leaving the call happy because it was really simple and they can just do it from their phone, which is like a great experience that we have from caregivers to have. Okay, and thank you so much for joining Care Academy. We look forward to working with you and answering any questions you may have in the future. And as you know, you can reach us out in anytime that you may just first encounter one of the features, or if you see one of the new features that you may not have understood how to use just up on the released information, we'll be happy to help with that as well.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Alicia. Thank you so much, Letty. I hope you also have a wonderful week, and let us know whenever we can help in the future.
Will
Okay,
do.
thank you.
Take care. Have a
All right.
wonderful day.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.